There are 5 objects that should not exist. Science knows it. Museums know it. And that is exactly why they were hidden, locked away, and some even reburied on purpose. Why? Because if you knew the truth about them, everything you were taught about human history would collapse in seconds. Today, you will see what they have tried so hard to hide. In 1943, workers were digging a trench for water pipes on Cockno Farm in Ireland when their tools hit something solid, nearly 6 feet underground. What they uncovered left archaeologists speechless. An oval-shaped stone covered with intricate carvings that looked like constellations and geometric patterns impossible for that time. The concentric circles etched into the surface revealed astronomical knowledge that would only be rediscovered thousands of years later. But here's the part no one talks about. After it was photographed and documented, the stone was deliberately buried again, and its exact location has never been revealed to the public. Studies indicate that the symbols on the stone date back at least 5,000 years, making it older than the Egyptian pyramids and predating cuneiform writing. The carved lines form patterns that match planetary movements and lunar cycles with unsettling precision. How could a supposedly primitive culture without telescopes record celestial phenomena with such accuracy? Researchers notice something even more disturbing. Some symbols represent stars that are only visible from the southern hemisphere, even though the stone is located in northern Europe. Why bury this ancient artifact of incalculable historical value? Some theorists suggest that the symbols revealed knowledge so advanced it would challenge our human timeline. And what if that stone was more than a record? What if it was a map left by someone who knew the sky better than we do? Did it show something we were not meant to know, or something we once knew and forgot? This stone is not the only case of impossible discoveries conveniently hidden from public view. There is a pattern. Artifacts are documented, studied for a short time, and then disappear. While the Cockno Stone sleeps beneath Irish soil, on the other side of the world, there is an entire city built where life should be impossible. A city with ancient technology so advanced that science cannot explain how it was. Built more than 13,000 feet above sea level. Tiwanaku sits at 13,000 feet above sea level in the Bolivian Andes, a place where the air is so thin that even breathing is a challenge. There are no trees. Agriculture is nearly impossible, and nighttime temperatures freeze anything alive. Yet a monumental city stands there, made of enormous stone blocks weighing more than 100 tons, fitted together with millimeter precision. How could a supposedly primitive civilization build this in such hostile conditions? And why? The Gate of the Sun is the most disturbing piece, a single 10-ton block carved with complex mathematical and astronomical symbols. Researchers discovered that the calendar engraved on it marks exactly 365.2422 days per year. The same level of precision we use today with modern instruments. This means that whoever built Tiwanaku possessed astronomical knowledge equal to ours more than 14,000 years ago. The stone cuts are so symmetrical that modern engineers admit it would be impossible to replicate without metal tools. Here is the central mystery. Where did this knowledge come from? There are no records of a gradual technological evolution in that region. It is as if someone simply appeared with advanced mathematics, accurate astronomy, and impossible construction techniques. Built a metropolis on top of a mountain and then vanished. Some theorists propose that Tiwanaku inherited knowledge from an earlier era, from a civilization even older that was erased from history. What if they did not invent those techniques, but merely remembered them? Local legends speak about teachers who came from the stars and taught the ancient people how to build and calculate the heavens. Cultural coincidence or a fragmented memory of something real? Because while Tiwanaku challenges our understanding with its impossible ancient technology, something even stranger awaits. Objects that should not exist at all, scattered along remote beaches. Spherical stones so perfectly carved, They look like they were designed by minds that mastered geometry thousands of years before humans existed as we know them. Along the coast of New Zealand, scattered across Moeraki Beach, there are dozens of giant stone spheres that look as if they rose from the ocean. Some are up to 7 feet in diameter and weigh several tons, perfectly round, as if they had been shaped by invisible hands. When one of these spheres naturally breaks due to erosion, something even more intriguing appears. Perfect hexagonal segments radiating from the center, as if they were designed with intentional geometric precision. Conventional geology tries to explain them as natural concretions, but the symmetry is far too precise to be simple coincidence. The Maori, the native people of the region, have always called these spheres te kaha, ori te uru, the ancestral dragon eggs. Their legends speak of ancient beings that came from the sky and left these eggs as markers or seeds of knowledge. The fascinating thing is that completely isolated cultures around the world have identical stories. Spheres falling from the sky, gifts from gods, objects of power left by advanced ancestors. How did people separated by entire oceans create the same narratives about mysterious spheres? Coincidence or collective memory of a real event that everyone once witnessed? Official science insists that they are geological formations, yet cannot explain the internal geometric perfection, nor why they appear in concentrated clusters. Some researchers point out that the internal hexagonal structure is characteristic of intentional design, not random natural processes. And here's the detail no one mentions. Similar spheres have been found in deep caves, far away from any beach, in completely different geological conditions. If they are natural, why do they follow the same construction pattern in such different environments, natural or artificial? Science cannot decide. The Moeraki spheres remain there, resisting time, guarding secrets that may never be fully understood. But if you think perfectly symmetrical spheres are difficult to explain, prepare yourself. Because the next artifact was found 300 feet below the ground in geological layers, millions of years old. And it shows clear signs that someone was creating refined art when we supposedly did not even exist. A small baked clay figure that completely destroys everything we think we know about our own origin. In 1889, workers were drilling a water well in Nampa, Idaho, when the drill brought something up that made everyone freeze. A tiny human figure made of baked clay that came from 300 feet underground. The geological layer where it was found had been sealed for millions of years, with no possibility of contamination or later intrusion. The figurine was only 1.5 inches tall, yet the details were astonishing. Clothing carved with precision, correct anatomical human proportions, delicate facial features that indicated refined artistic skill. This was not a random accident. It was intentional art created by someone who mastered sculpting techniques. The most disturbing detail is not just the depth or the age of the geological layer. It is the fact that baked clay means total control over fire. Whoever made that figurine needed to know how to reach specific temperatures, how to maintain stable kilns, and how to understand the chemical properties of clay. That implies an advanced culture, transmitted knowledge, and complex social organization. Researchers tried to discredit the discovery by arguing contamination, but the geology is clear. That layer was sealed for millions of years, a period in which, according to official science, primates did not even exist. So who were we before we were humans? Later tests confirmed that the clay had been subjected to intentional intense heat, discarding any natural formation possibility. The figurine even has microscopic tool marks, as if it had been carved with precision instruments. Some scientists suggested that it could be a more recent object that slipped through cracks in the ground. Yet geological engineers confirmed there were no cracks, no openings, no logical explanation within the accepted paradigm. The Nampa figurine is one of those out-of-place artifacts that should not exist at all, but it does. Today, the small figurine is locked inside a museum, far from public display, classified as too controversial in origin to be shown. Why? Because it questions everything. But if you thought a figurine millions of years old was already impossible to process, hold on. The final artifact not only challenges archaeology, it completely destroys the laws of physics, geology, and everything we know about metallurgy. A simple iron hammer, fossilized inside 400-million-year-old rock, with metal purity superior to what we can produce today. In 1934, a couple was walking near London, Texas, when they noticed a piece of wood sticking out of a rock on the ground. When they carefully broke the rock, they found a perfectly preserved iron hammer, with its wooden handle completely petrified and fused into the stone. The initial geological analysis produced a result that sent the scientific community into panic. The rock around it was 400 million years old from the Ordovician era. This means the hammer had been trapped inside that rock long before dinosaurs, long before the first trees, long before any complex life existed on the surface of the Earth. The metallurgical analysis revealed something even more impossible. The iron had a purity of 96.6% with 0 sulfur inclusions. Modern smelting techniques always leave sulfur impurities in iron. It is practically inevitable with our current methods. How did someone achieve this purity without modern refining technology? Researchers tested the metal repeatedly, hoping to find a logical explanation. Yet the results remained the same. Iron of a higher quality than what we produce today, forged with techniques science cannot explain. The petrified wooden handle was so fused into the rock that separating them would destroy the artifact. Skeptics tried to argue that the hammer was recent and simply got stuck in ancient rock, but that ignores the complete petrification of the wooden handle. Wood does not fossilize in decades or centuries. It takes millions of years under specific geological conditions. Others suggested contamination, but the hammer is literally fused inside the rock matrix as if it had been placed there when the rock was still forming. Geological dating was confirmed by multiple independent laboratories. 400 million years, a period when Earth barely had breathable atmosphere and certainly no humans or anything remotely similar to humans. This means someone was forging high-quality metal when our planet was still a barren desert without complex terrestrial life. Someone mastered advanced metallurgy at a time that should be impossible for any form of intelligence to exist. And just like the other artifacts you have seen today, the London hammer is considered too controversial for wide public exhibition. It remains in a private collection, far from curious eyes that might ask the right questions. But now that you know these 5 impossible discoveries, a bigger question begins to emerge. Is there a pattern connecting all of them? Pause for a moment and look at the timeline. A 400-million-year-old hammer, a figurine millions of years old. Tiwanaku with 14,000 years, the Cockno Stone with 5,000 years, and spheres that defy dating methods. 5 completely different artifacts from separate continents and from entirely different geological eras. Yet they all share something disturbing: precise astronomical knowledge, advanced mathematics, and manufacturing techniques that we should not have possessed at those times. This is not an isolated accident. It is a pattern. A pattern that suggests advanced ancient technology existed multiple times over millions of years. Think about the details. The gate of the sun marks 365.24 to 2 days with modern accuracy. The Cockno Stone maps constellations impossible to see without telescopes. The hammer shows metal casting techniques superior to ours. The figurine demonstrates controlled high-temperature firing and cultural mastery of fire. These are not primitives trying to survive. These are societies that mastered science, engineering, and astronomy. And they are not alone. Pyramids appear simultaneously in Egypt, Mexico, and Southeast Asia, with no contact among these cultures. Megaliths perfectly aligned to equinoxes appear across the world. The Baghdad Battery demonstrates knowledge of electricity 2,000 years ago. Too many coincidences. Here is the question no one wants to ask. What if history is not linear, but cyclical? What if advanced civilizations rose, prospered, and were completely erased multiple times? The artifacts you saw today are rare precisely because they are survivors. Most evidence was destroyed by cataclysms, buried under oceans that shifted in location or disintegrated with incomprehensible time spans. We are looking at fragments of entire chapters of human history that were erased. Chapters where we may have once been as advanced as we are today, or even more advanced. Researchers point to three distinct waves of lost knowledge: the era of hundreds of millions of years represented by the hammer, the era of millions of years represented by the Nampa Figurine, and the era of thousands of years represented by Tiwanaku and Cockno. 3 civilizational resets, 3 restarts. And each time, the survivors carried fragments of previous knowledge, trying to preserve what they could through symbols, structures, and objects. But what caused these catastrophic forgettings? What was powerful enough to erase entire civilizations 3 times and leave only impossible artifacts as silent proof that we have already been here before? Geology does not lie. Our planet has gone through massive cataclysms that erased almost all life forms multiple times. The end of the Ice Age happened violently and abruptly. Comet impacts left craters the size of countries. Extreme climate changes turned oceans into deserts and deserts back into oceans within decades. Researchers have identified at least 5 mass extinction events in the last 500 million years. And here is the disturbing detail. In each of these events, more than 70% of all species were wiped out, potentially including advanced civilizations that left almost no trace. More than 200 cultures around the world have myths about global floods, destruction by fire falling from the sky, and previous eras that were completely annihilated. The Hopi speak of 4 previous worlds destroyed. Hindu texts describe cycles of yugas where civilizations rise and disappear. The Maya had calendars that marked periodic ends of the world. Coincidence? Or fragmented cultural memory of real events that surviving ancestors passed down through generations? The Younger Dryas event 12,800 years ago was a sudden extinction period in which global temperatures fell by 15 degrees in less than a decade. Megafauna vanished in an instant, and geological evidence suggests multiple cosmic impacts. Imagine an advanced civilization thriving during the Ice Age, with coastal cities, developed technology, precise astronomical knowledge. Suddenly, comets strike Earth. Glaciers melt in a matter of years. Oceans rise hundreds of feet. Temperatures swing uncontrollably. 90% of the population is wiped out in months. Survivors scatter, carrying fragments of knowledge they try to preserve through megalithic construction, symbols carved in stone, and hidden objects. Within a few generations, advanced knowledge becomes myth, technology becomes legend, and we start from zero again. This would explain why ancient artifacts are so rare and why so many are under oceans or ice layers. Most evidence is literally submerged or buried under miles of accumulated sediment over millions of years. The London Hammer, the Nampa Figurine, the Moeraki spheres. These are exceptions, improbable survivors of planetary destruction. What if we are not the first version of humanity to reach for the stars? What if we already built, explored, and mastered advanced science and lost everything multiple times? The frightening question is not whether it happened. The real question is how many times it happened and whether it will happen again. 400 million years. Millions of years. 14,000 years. 5,000 years. Artifacts scattered across impossible geological eras, all carrying the same secret. Someone was here before us. Mastering technology that we can barely replicate today. We are not the first chapter of this story. Maybe not even the second. The real question is, how many times has humanity tried to reach the stars and then been erased? If it happened 3, 4, or maybe 5 times before, are we destined to repeat the cycle? Or are we finally breaking the pattern? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep uncovering truths about ancient artifacts and mysteries that official science prefers to bury, literally. Which one of these artifacts surprised you the most? Comment below, because when the truth is buried twice, it is probably because it is impossible to ignore.